What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. And this one is the game week preview ahead of game week 14. Not too long to go until the deadline, so I'm going to try and get through as many of your questions as possible, questions and topics. There are going to be press conferences happening today, so there might be some information in those that's missed from this video, because if I wait till the press conferences are done, there'll be like an hour before the deadline to get this video out. And we're also not going to hear from Arteta for Arsenal, obviously Conte Spurs, and RANGNICK for Man United, or maybe Carrick, right? Because I don't know if RANGNICK's in the country yet, because they're playing on Thursday. So Brentford are going to have a press conference, but none of those three teams, which is a little bit annoying, especially for those of us that own Saka. But it is what it is. We'll try and go ahead with the information we've got. So if you enjoy it, give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. Don't forget to check out my 888 Sport article as well, which is linked in the description below, which goes through some of the key topics for this week. Otherwise, let's jump into it. So one of the press conferences we have had is from Leicester. Now I know there's a few people, even though he's just scored a brace against Watford, they're still considering selling VARDY, mostly because people need some money from somewhere to then fund other moves. Realistically, before we saw this press conference, I was thinking you probably don't want to sell VARDY. He's got his 2 goals against Watford. There's still some good fixtures coming, right? Southampton away, Villa away, Newcastle at home. It's 3 pretty nice fixtures. And to be honest, you could say this pretty much about any player this week, right? In this game week, for game week 14, because it's midweek, there could be rotation, right? Even the likes of Salah I've spoken about, you just never know. They could get rotated. Brendan Rodgers was specifically talking about Jamie Vardy and said that's the juggling act with him at his age. If he plays midweek, it's tough for him because then he's not quite got the energy, right, for the next match at the weekend. And we know that in Europe he has been managed quite heavily, and they've played kind of Daka or someone else instead. And they do have the likes of Daka and Iheanacho have been benched enough times who will have enough energy. They have had enough inaction, right? They haven't been playing that much. They could be fresh for this game to keep Vardy fresh for the weekend. He goes on to say, on his longevity, he has the talent, he has the will. What he's tried to do, just manage him to maximise what we can get out of him. And then he goes on to basically say that he's really good for recovery, and he's invested money into stuff for the house as well to kind of make sure he can recover and kind of stay at the top of his game for as long as he can. I guess similar to something like what Ronaldo would do, right? But as always, like I said yesterday about Ronaldo on Twitter, age catches up to everyone, and Vardy's not going to keep being able to perform week in, week out playing midweek matches. So I guess the question is, what do I think? Should you sell him? I think if you've got other moves you really want to make and you need the cash from Vardy, based on these quotes and maybe the fact that you're not going to want to keep him long term, then it's probably okay to get rid of him. But I think the fixtures are pretty good. Like Villa away, Newcastle at home. He should play at least both of them. And there is a chance he plays Southampton as well. There is every chance that he just plays all 3 of these games. I know these words from Rodgers are a little bit worrying, but he could do that. If not, I expect him to at least play 2 of the next 3. So again, if you've got adequate bench cover, it might be worth just holding him if you haven't got any other moves you want to make. But he does feel like the type of player that if he doesn't start, he probably will come on. So I feel like the cameo chances are quite high. So if you need your excuse to sell Vardy, if you've been looking for an excuse, maybe this is it. But I think 2 of the next 3 he definitely plays, and the fixtures are pretty good, and he's still looking good. 2 goals against Watford. I think there's every reason to keep him. It's all going to depend on your team, as always, but I thought it was worth just talking about this because there are some worries about him starting this week now. I don't want to scaremonger anyone. I'm just reporting what was said. I'm almost certain I answered a similar question last week and said I wouldn't keep answering this question, but it's going to keep coming up. So I'm not necessarily going to cover it every week, but I wanted to give a good example from game week 13 about bench strength. So should you have any non-playing players on your bench during the busy run of fixtures over Christmas? I'm specifically talking here about the outfield players, because I think if you've got the likes of Foster and they've just got injured, there's no point in rotating them or using a transfer on them, because your main keeper, whether it's Ramsdale, Sanchez, Guaita, someone else, will pretty much play, right? Goalkeepers don't tend to get rotated, so there's nothing to worry about there. I still stand by the fact you don't need to prioritise transfers to get 3 playing players on the bench. I think 2 is enough, right? So a lot of us will have like Brownhill or someone like that, plus a defender. Maybe it's Livramento, maybe it's someone else, maybe it's Lamptey for some of you now, etc. And if you've got a third outfield player, that's great, right? You should be happy about that. And if you're one of those people that's kind of spread the cash around their squad and they've got the likes of, 4 or 5 at the back, and they've got 7 attackers as well, or 8 attackers, right, if I can do the maths right, then great. You've got lots of options. It not only gives you cover if players miss out, but it also gives you flexibility to move players in and out on injuries, fixtures, etc. But I still don't think you need to go and prioritise your transfers. And it's all well and good for the hindsight merchants to kind of turn around and say, well, if you'd had a better bench, then you could have covered players like Kane. Well, Kane and Son really unlucky to miss out. I had a bench player, I had Livramento. It just so happens that the game that was called off for snow was the game that Livramento was playing against Liverpool, so didn't get any points. I saw people with, and look, you should definitely be happy about it, but getting players like Brandon Williams off the bench, Norwich get a clean sheet, happy days. Now, you can't turn around to me and say that having Brandon Williams on your bench is like massively, massively better than having Livramento on your bench. Okay, Norwich have got some okay fixtures coming up, but that's not a massive increase in strength versus Livramento. Sometimes you just need a little bit of luck as well. So I think if you've got two, you shouldn't really be worried. Like, by all means, like, make transfers and strengthen your bench if it gives you like a bit of flexibility. So in game week 16, 17, for example, I keep talking about this. I might, not 100% locked in, but downgrade Kane. That's going to give me money to maybe start upgrading the likes of Brownhill and start being able to rotate my squad a bit more just before Christmas. But I might do that because it works for the team, not because I'm specifically worried about the bench. If you've got two, that's fine. If you've got three, that's great. Okay, one, you might need to get another one at some point. But again, there's only one midweek game, then there's at least another couple of weekend fixtures before you need to massively worry about, you know, that period over Christmas. There's only a couple of games between, a couple of days between games. So don't panic too much. If you've got two already, that's probably enough for now. Don't prioritise transfers on it, in my opinion. So no captaincy video. One, because everyone's just captaining Salah at the moment anyway, but also because of the quick turnaround. So I'm just going to quickly talk about it. There was a question about should we captain Salah or Jota, and as always, right, and look, I'm susceptible to outcome bias and hindsight bias and stuff like that as well, but because Jota's done well over the last week or so ahead of Salah, who's maybe, you know, returns haven't been double figures every single week, there's now some questions about whether you should captain Salah or Jota. For me, this is a no-brainer. Like, it's Salah absolutely for many reasons. One, yes, Jota's numbers are very, so I should explain, the numbers on screen are the expected goal involvement per 90 minutes over the last 4 or 5 seasons in Salah's case, because we didn't have data for Jota. So this season, Jota's 1.06, Salah's 0.97. Now, you might say, well, Jota's performing better, and Jota's numbers are made up from more expected goals and expected assists as well. So that's also a plus. But Salah's just done it over many, many years at a higher level than Jota. Now, it's very clear that Jota's 0.66 and now is 1.06 are both from when he moved to Liverpool. So it makes sense those numbers have got a bit higher. He's playing in a better team. But ultimately, per 90 minutes always has to have context. And if these two players both start, you'd almost always assume that Salah is going to stay on the pitch for longer. So straight away, that's better. And also, he's got penalties. And also, it's Salah. You're massively fighting against the crowd if you go Jota. So is there a case to go Jota? Yes, if Salah gets injured. Otherwise, I probably would always just back Salah. And by the way, Son and Kane could be good options. They've had a little bit of extra rest. It's a home game against Brentford. They're not exactly watertight in defence either. So if you really wanted to go different, that is where I'd probably look, the Spurs players. Otherwise, it's Salah again. You could go Jota, you could go Trent, you could go Mane, but none of them are as good as Salah. Okay, so a few people obviously looking to get Crystal Palace players. The fixtures are looking pretty good. Gallagher's obviously done very well this season as well. So is it the right time to play Gallagher? I think that should be buy. Maybe I wrote that wrong. It should be buy Gallagher, or is the boat sailed? Seemed like he was playing number 6 when Eze came on. So a few people have been speculating recently that when Palace have got a lot more of their attackers back, that Gallagher might have a more kind of reserved role where he has to stay a little bit deeper. He has at times played as like a number 10 almost behind Benteke, which is obviously good for him, and we know he's pretty good at arriving late in the box. But with McArthur out, you know, players like Eze back, there is a chance that I think a lot of it depends on what formation they play. And if they play kind of like a 4-3-3, you know, they could have Zaha, Eze, Edouard even has played wide, Benteke through the middle. However, Vieira sets it up. If Gallagher then has to play in one of the 3 midfielders, he could still be the more advanced one. But there is a chance that possibly he plays a little bit deeper. I think he's the kind of player that's got the legs to get forward, but maybe Vieira will possibly shackle him a little bit. So I am a little bit sceptical. I think the next 2 fixtures are pretty good. Like if I just bring them up here, I think is it Leeds and then someone else? Bring it up quick. So it's Leeds away, then it's straight into Man United away. Then the fixtures are pretty good. I mean, again, Man United away could be easy, difficult, depending on how quickly Rangnick gets them playing. But then it's Everton at home, Southampton at home, Watford away. So there are some pretty good fixtures there. I don't think that we should completely write him off, but there is obviously some unknowns there about what's going to happen. I do think maybe Bowen, longer term, is probably a better option. He has Brighton at home this week, which isn't too bad, but then he goes straight into Chelsea at home. So again, him and Gallagher have got kind of difficult fixtures in game week 15. But I don't think Gallagher's a bad pick. Still, I think I think people are right to maybe be slightly concerned, but we can't really be 100% sure how Palace are going to look over the next kind of 4 to 5 game weeks. And Gallagher has been good. He has been getting into the box. He has been getting shots, decent expected goals, decent-ish expected assists as well. His expected goal involvement was pretty good. And there aren't a huge... The thing is, for 6.1 million, like I'm looking down the list, there aren't a huge amount of other options that are looking better. Like Smith Rowe could be a better option from next week, possibly. Saka as well, if he's fit. We'll have to wait and see what happens with him. Otherwise, kind of Bowen. I know no one wants Mboma either at the moment. So I think for 6.1 million, there aren't a huge amount of other better options. So I don't think you've missed the boat completely, but I'm not sure he can keep up the amount of returns he's had so far. But I still think for 6.1, he'll be a pretty good option. But if you ask me the question again in a game week or two, I'd definitely prefer Bowen for only like 0.3 million more. So there are a couple of questions about how there's no forward options at the moment, right? And it does feel like that, mostly because they're just not performing well. Calvert-Lewin's still injured. Bamford might be back soon, but then the fixtures turn. Obviously, Antonio hasn't really been doing anything recently, although, again, his fixtures are going to turn soon. Jimenez has got one more good fixture, then his fixtures get really bad. So there aren't a amount of huge options at a cheap price. There are still options, but the problem is on this list of 6. Now, I've left out players like Benteke, King, and Pukki because they're all really cheap, and I think people are looking at them anyway, and that seems to be where the game's kind of headed. Really cheap defenders for the most part, maybe like a 7.5 to 8 like Antonio for some people. Obviously a lot of us have got Kane, maybe Vardy, but probably looking to offload them sooner rather than later. So once they go, like cheap forwards, and then maybe spread the money around midfield, Salah, Jota, maybe a Man City midfielder, maybe a Man United midfielder soon as well, possibly. I'm going to talk about Man United in a little bit. And obviously a lot of people have got kind of 4 premium defenders. Some people have even got 5, right? And I'm saying premium is in kind of 5.5 or above just for this. If you wanted to stick around and have a few more forward options, there are some. I think Kane, Lukaku, Ronaldo and Vardy. The problem is 4 of the 6 on this list are all kind of 10.6 million or more, so you can only have one of them. I do think there are concerns around how often or how many minutes Ronaldo gets over Christmas. Kane, we're going to have to wait and see over the next couple of games just how good Spurs look. I don't think Conte is going to turn it around that quickly. I think it looks like a more difficult task than maybe even he expected. We've already spoken about Vardy. Okay, he's good for like 2 or 3 of the next 3 game weeks, but then again, people are probably going to look to offload him. So these are short-term options. With Lukaku, could be a nice little differential this week against Watford away. He did come on against Man United, so he is probably getting closer to full fitness, and we'll hear from Tuchel to see what he says. So he could start, and Chelsea have got some good fixtures coming up. So that's one to look at if you want to stick to that kind of premium option. Otherwise, if you come down, it gets really difficult. Again, I've not listed Antonio just because everyone, I feel like, he either owns him or knows about him, right? Otherwise, you've got Jesus. Now, I quite like Jesus as an option. I've eyed him up a couple of times. There was a few weeks ago where I looked at a transfer plan that involved getting him, James and Jota, and I just didn't go for it because I am always concerned with Man City players about their rotation threat. But with Jesus, he has started pretty much every game since game week 2. The only 2 fixtures he's missed are this one straight after an international break and this one straight after an international break. Now, because the fixture pile-up is coming, I don't expect him to start every game. And if Mahrez is fit and Sterling's fit and Foden and Grealish come back, there is going to be a chance that he does get rotated in some of these games. But I would go as far to say he is the first choice right winger at the moment for Man City, and he's played well. His numbers are always good. Like if we just quickly go back to this screen, 0.62 expecting goal involvement. I know people get a bit frustrated because it always feels like he misses easy chances, but he does get into the right positions. He was unlucky not to come away with more returns in the last game as well. And the fixtures are looking pretty good, right? Watford away next week in game week 15. In 17 and 18, they got Leeds at home, Newcastle away. We know how good the Man City attack is. I guess the question is, how many of the next 5 fixtures would he start? I think there's a good chance he starts 4 of them, right? And if it's the 4, I guess it doesn't really matter which ones they are because it's Man City. But if he starts 4 or 5 of the next 5, he could be a decent option. And I think if things were different, like if Bamford had great fixtures, Calvert-Lewin had great fixtures, we wouldn't be talking about Jesus, because those players are absolutely nailed on with penalties as well. With Jesus, that's not the case, but the fixtures are good. Man City are brilliant. And he has started, apart from the 2 games after the international break, every single game since game week 2. So, again, I know I keep talking about this, and I'll probably end up just doing Kane to Ronaldo. But in 16-17, I'm hoping to have 2 free transfers to downgrade Kane to someone a bit cheaper to spread the money around. And Jesus is definitely in my thoughts. Again, I'm not locked into any transfer plans because it's only game week 14, and things could definitely change by the time we get to 16-17. But if he keeps getting the minutes he's got, he's going to keep returning points. And when there isn't that many other cheaper strikers around the kind of 8.7 or lower, you could definitely look at him. But I do think the kind of meta, or the template, as everyone calls it, obviously in FPL, is to have cheaper strikers to put the money in defence and midfield. And I don't really see anything wrong with that. I know people keep saying at some point 4 premium defenders or 5 premium defenders is not going to be the optimal play. And I get that, because always 3-4-3 always wins out. But this season, and right now, it looks very difficult to call when that's going to be. Liverpool defence is good. Man City defence is good. Chelsea defence is good. Trent, Cancelo, James are getting very good minutes. So you add in like an Alonso or like a Diaz or someone else, and suddenly you got very few reasons to doubt any of those players. So I don't think you have to go for Jesus or Kane or Lukaku or Ronaldo or Vardy, because going for cheaper strikers is the play at the moment. But I think Jesus could be an option. And don't completely laugh off Chris Wood as well. I put him on this list. Burnley have got some good fixtures. I'm just going to say it. I think Chris Wood's a better option than Cornet, especially if you're struggling to fill striker spots. He's on penalties as well. He pretty much plays every single game. Wolves away, okay, maybe not the fixture to bring him in for, but Newcastle away, Watford at home, coming in 2 of the next 3 fixtures after that. Villa, Everton, these aren't difficult fixtures. It's not like a run of Norwich at home, Watford at home, Newcastle away, but well, obviously he can't play Burnley, but you get what I mean. But the fixtures are not that bad for a nailed-on player that's on penalties as well. And his numbers are usually pretty good over the seasons. He's quite a consistent player. And plus, Chris Wood, you've got to own him at least once a season, right? So, yeah, there aren't too many options that people aren't already talking about. Jesus could be an option. I like him. And Chris Wood if you want someone a bit cheaper. Otherwise, you really need to decide if you want one of those premium forwards. I think they're okay for now, but I don't think that's going to be the case for much longer. So this is quite interesting. Like, there's 2 questions, and they're completely different, right? It's about Norwich defence and Maddison from the same person. So I thought I'd talk about them, right? So one was kind of discuss Norwich defensive numbers under Dean Smith. So as always, this is an extremely small sample size. I would not change your opinion on Norwich too much based on 2 games, first of all, before I tell you what the numbers are. And also, Dean Smith's Villa weren't that great defensively, right? I think they're going to look better defensively under Gerrard than they were under Smith. So that's something to consider as well. Norwich are going to be in a relegation battle all season. We should still be targeting Norwich. We should not stop that just because Dean Smith's had 2 good results, right? Interestingly, against Southampton, Norwich's expected goals were 0.7. Southampton's were 1.2, right? So Southampton did score. It is what it is, right? And I mean, Southampton aren't necessarily the best attack in the league, so I wouldn't put too much emphasis on the Norwich defence because of that. The performance against Wolves was pretty good, especially considering Wolves have been all right in attack this season, right? They haven't necessarily always converted the chances into goals, but their expected data has been it's been okay, right? And so Norwich restricted them to just 0.3 expected goals. That's pretty good, right? But I'm not going to read too much in just the one game, right? They've got Newcastle, Spurs, Man United coming up. Like, we're not going to suddenly... I'm guessing this isn't people looking to buy Norwich defenders. It's people looking to worry about whether we should attack them. We definitely should still attack them, right? Because if you're going to start worrying about buying players to play against Norwich, then you're really left with very little teams you can genuinely target. So I still think Norwich, Burnley, Newcastle, Watford, these are all teams that we should look to get attackers in. Maddison, yes or no? I'm just going to bring up the Leicester fixtures again to remind myself. I usually am a little bit against Maddison because I feel like there's better options, but he has dropped to 6.6 million. So again, there's not a massive amount of options around that price. Next 3 fixtures are pretty good. Then it's Spurs at home, Everton away, which isn't that awful either. I guess the only issue is at any point will Rodgers change formation, and will he bring him out? I think he played very well against Watford, so you'd hope not. And he does start, like in looking at let me just bring it up so you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, last 6 games, he has started he has played majority of minutes in most of them, apart from the Leeds game. So minutes look okay. 6.6 million is okay, and given the options around 6.6 million or less, it's not too bad. I think his expected goal data is usually, like his expected goal involvement is usually kind of a bit lackluster compared to other options at a similar price. Like his goal threat is not that high, I don't think, and it never really has been. But the numbers are okay for a 6.6 million player. So I think there could be worse options, right? Like Saka, if he's fit, might be a better option. Bowen for sure, possibly Gallagher as well. But if you're in that bracket, you don't fancy any of them, and the rest of your team's like fairly set, fairly template, fairly solid, then a bit of a punt on Maddison for the next few fixtures, I don't mind it. I'm not going to be looking to buy him anytime soon. I'm not rushing out to do it. But I think if you want him, I don't think he's that bad of an option. I just wouldn't be expecting loads of goals. Sometimes he goes on a run, but that's not really a reason to bring in a player. So he's okay. He's not awful, not brilliant either, but okay for 6.6 million. So this is quite a big topic, especially when obviously the deadline's not too far away from Game Week 14, and then no one's going to probably watch this video by the time they're looking ahead to Game Week 15. So I'm not going to go into massive detail here. We could discuss it in another video, which was suggested by Michael. But basically, please discuss the implications of RANGNICK, right? So RANGNICK has been confirmed for Man United, right? He is going to be the coach. At least for the rest of this season, then he's going to move into a different role. He's probably not going to be in the country for the Arsenal game. Hopefully he'll be in for the game after that against Crystal Palace at home. And obviously there's a lot of kind of hype and happiness that he's come in because he has done a really good job at clubs in the past. I don't think he's coached for a little while. Like he's been in more kind of director roles and stuff like that. But this is big for Man United. Now, I am not a Ralf Rangnick expert. I've done what everyone else has done and done a little bit of research. So I'm just going to quickly talk about that. He seems to be more of a Klopp manager than a Pep Guardiola. So both of those teams, Liverpool and Man City, probably the two best attacking teams in the league. Pep does it more with control, and Klopp's kind of more. What was the quote from the interview? It's like more rock and roll football, right? You win the ball back and you get attacking straight away. And there's plenty of interviews if you go and watch them on YouTube of Rangnick saying you win the ball back, you try and get a shot off within like 8 or 10 seconds. I think it's when you lose the ball, it's 8 seconds maybe, and then when you try and get a shot off within 10 seconds. So it's all about getting the ball forward, but not just lobbing it forward, but having players that are going to run in behind. So really quickly, if we're talking from an FPL point of view, I really do think this brings Rashford and Sancho into the equation. We can talk about pressing, right, and how Ronaldo maybe doesn't press, but then neither does Rashford or Sancho, etc. But they do press more than Ronaldo. They are younger. They could be taught this. They do have more energy, etc. Right, and this isn't a dig at Ronaldo. I'm sure Rangnick is going to fit him into the team, but we already saw against Chelsea he got dropped because of the way they wanted to play. And he's going to be 37 in February, so he's not going to be able to play all these games over Christmas, which is what is putting me off a little bit with Ronaldo. But Sancho and Rashford could play a lot of those minutes, and they are going to be able to make those runs in behind, and they do interest me a lot. And it is worth saying that Rangnick is a big fan of Sancho, so he's already getting a slight run of games. And I don't want to big up Sancho too much because I do get a little bit locked in and tunnel vision on Man United players, but Rangnick does really like Sancho. He's got 2 goals in 2 games now. He is going to get a run of games, I think. He's the one that I'm looking at, but Rashford's definitely an option. In midfield, it's tough. I think Fred and McTominay will be used because they've got energy. They can do the pressing. Pogba would be an interesting one because I think he suits being able to get... Basically, Pogba suits getting the ball forward, right? Playing a good forward pass, but maybe not so much on the defensive side. So I'm not quite sure what's going to happen. Donny van der Beek's obviously cheap. I don't know how often he's going to play either. These are all things that maybe we can look at in the Arsenal at home, Crystal Palace at home game. And then ahead of the run, like if you look at the Man United fixture run, it's pretty good. Norwich, Brentford, Brighton, Newcastle, Burnley in the space of 5 games. I am looking at getting a player. I think Shaw will still be the defender of choice. So realistically, we don't really change our opinions of which players to pick from. It's going to be Shaw in defence. It could be Ronaldo, but I think he's going to miss minutes. Fernandes could be an option. We saw him play kind of as the number 9, false 9, etc. against Chelsea and kind of led the pressing from the front. So maybe that's what's going to happen going forward. We will see over the next couple of games. But there are going to be changes at Man United. A bit like Conte, there's a lot of work to do. If he wants to employ a game like how Klopp plays, there's a lot different to what Man United are used to. There's all this talk under Solskjaer of playing the Man United away, going on these quick counter-attacks. But the problem Solskjaer had was they didn't win the ball back very quick. And when they did, they kind of passed sideways a lot. And that let the other team get back into a shape. And then you have to break them down. Rangnick's style is more get the ball, you play a forward pass. You don't play backwards, you don't play sideways. It's not to say you never do it, but you're always looking for that forward pass to kind of catch the opposite team off their guard, basically, so you don't let them reset into a shape. So I really think runners are going to be key. So Rashford and Sancho are the two that I'm looking at, and also because they kind of fit the current template where you take a bit of money out of the forward line, you put it into midfield, you put it into defence. But ultimately, look what's happening with Conte at Spurs. Conte's a world-class manager. It's going to take time. Rangnick, it's going to take time at Man United to turn them around, and it's all about getting top 4 for Man United at this point. So there are positives. I do think they're going to be better than under Solskjaer. The fixtures are good. We should be looking at Man United players, but maybe don't rush out and buy them this week. Let's see how they set up. Let's see if Ronaldo plays the next 2 games. Let's see how he does. Let's see where Fernandes plays. Let's see what happens with Van der Beek. There's lots of concerns, or not lots of concerns, but lots of things to think about. Sancho, though, is the one you're going to hear me talking about over the next couple of weeks, because I really want an excuse to bring him in, and I know Rangnick likes him, and I like him too. So there we go. Thank you very much for watching that one. If you enjoyed it, give it a like and hit that subscribe button. I'm going to leave it there because I want to go and get this live on YouTube as soon as possible ahead of tonight's deadline. I will be doing a deadline stream around 4 o'clock, maybe half 4. Obviously, the deadline is at 6 o'clock UK time tonight, so do not miss that out. And obviously, I'll discuss in there anything that we hear from the press conferences this afternoon as well. So thank you very much for watching. Hit the like button, hit subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.